Hello, everyone, and welcome to our news edition of Let's Talk Supply Chain. I'm your host, Sarah Barnes-Humphrey, and today we're diving into the inventory crisis 2.0, overstocked, uninformed, and still playing catch up. From AI-powered planning to sustainability smackdowns, the pressure is on, and we're cutting through the noise with quick, sharp insights from some of the industry's most forward-thinking leaders. So buckle up. This is going to be fast, bold, and just what your supply chain team needs to hear today. So welcome to the show, Deb, Sharon, and Devin. Deb, can you kick us off? Tell us who you are, what you do, and a little bit about your company.
Definitely. First of all, thanks, Sarah, for having me. My name's Deb Frier. I'm the CEO of Quant Fusion, and we solve a pervasive issue that manufacturers and distributors have in their workflows where they're relying on Excel to get their tasks done because none of their systems talk and their data is isolated. So thanks again for having me.
Awesome. Thanks for being here, Deb. Next, on to Sharon. Tell us who you are, what you do, and a little bit about your company.
I'm happy to be here, and I'm Sharon Custer. I am an inventory optimization consultant. We help business to connect financial data to their real operation situation.
Well, I'm super excited to have you here. And last but absolutely not least, Devin, tell us who you are and what you do.
Thanks, Sarah. Hi, Devin O'Herron. I'm a senior sustainability expert with Assent. We're a global supply chain sustainability management software and services platform, working with a couple hundred of the largest manufacturers in the world and their supply chains to make sure ultimately that everyone has the right data that they need to meet market access requirements and the ever-evolving landscape related to sustainability compliance tech drivers.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here. Let's kick things off with the biggest inventory mistake companies are still making in 2025. I can't believe I'm asking this, but what's the error that just won't die? And what's your lightning fast fix for this? Deb, I'm going to start with you, and then we're going to go to Sharon.
Perfect. You know, a lot of companies are still forecasting in aggregate. They really need to start looking at SKU level forecasting, the techniques and AI agents and things like that make it easier than ever to do this. And aggregation is what's getting people into trouble.
Aggregation. Can you go into a little bit more about that? What does that actually mean?
Sure. So what they're doing is they're either taking their entire volume from the previous year and applying a growth rate on it and assuming every SKU is growing the same, or they're taking specific segments of products that still may have hundreds of or thousands of SKUs in it and modeling that entire segment as if it's one big entity.
Wow, that's crazy. I can't believe we're still dealing with that and still having to figure that out. Sharon, what do you think? What's one of the errors that just won't die? What do you think?
People think like automation will solve all the problems they have. Like they actually should fix their process or mindset. For example, like say, if the financial analysis using moving average, the inventory never really matched with the moving average. It could be many factors. For example, the seasonal demand, the cost is like just never really matched the real cost into the system. So what I was saying is like when the financial analysis using, for example, using moving average, but that data is never accurate. So at the end of the month, when the book is closed, the inventory value is calculated and they just write it off and never really look into the problems. We really need to look at the organizational behavior, what really happened. It never changed that data. So no matter how the financial analyst or CFO or accountant try to adjust that cost of goods sold every month.
I can't believe we're dealing with data inaccuracy in 2025. I just have to say. Now, Devin, I want to bring you into the conversation and I want to have a little bit of fun with it because if inventory could talk, what would it be yelling at supply chain teams right now?
Sure. So I'm a little bit biased coming from my own perspective, but I hope inventory is shouting out a heads up that the same products that you might be shipping to different customers might have different data requirements. We're seeing market access requirements and customer expectations really varying based on different geographies, and it's ever evolving. It's really tough to keep up with that. And then not to bury the lead, but even if your product itself isn't in scope for a particular regulation or customer expectation, your customers still might need data about that particular product they're buying from you in order to meet their own obligations.
Wow. Wow. It's so many things to think about and what inventory should be telling you, especially with technology, especially with the data that we should be having at the moment. Now, Deb, this one's for you. Can AI really predict the unpredictable? Give us one real world aha moment where it did.
Sure, it can definitely help. So I'm going to look at financial markets for a second. They've been using machine learning and ensemble models for decades, looking for the tiny changes in demand and supply to go ahead and take advantage of those opportunities. And manufacturing and distribution can do the same thing, but they need to have real-time signals feeding into their forecasting models. So what I mean by that are things like as sales orders are entered, looking at every SKU and determining, is this next order above or below my historical average, and then making changes if it falls beyond that boundary. Same thing for proposals. Proposals, looking again at the SKU level, are we proposing more items than we did last year? And that's going to definitely have to impact.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I think, what Sharon was talking about around data accuracy, but also we want AI to be able to help with manage some of that. And then we want to manage some of the exceptions as well. But it really is critical that we have our data right. So Sharon and Devin, I want a hot take from both of you. What's more dangerous right now, having too much inventory or not knowing what to do with it? Sharon, I'll start with you.
I think the more dangerous one is not knowing what to do with them. The problems come small, but it amplifies. The problem is the behavior never changed, so the problems keep coming back.
Well, it's a boomerang effect. And obviously, there's a ton of capital that's sitting there if the inventory is sitting there and you don't know what to do with it.
Like your marketing campaign, overall business strategy, because there's just a limited of space in warehouse.
I'm also leaning towards not knowing what to do with it, more in that lane of not having the right data to make sure that it gets to your customers wherever they need it to. Increasingly you're seeing requirements around due diligence demonstration throughout supply chains, and market access requirements, as products are entering, being enforced through trade type situations. It's really critical that you're able to make sure that you can keep moving your inventory, that you have the right data available from the right actors in the supply chain to make sure that you have that seamless movement of goods.
What are some of those red flags that you would be able to notice that you have some inventory sitting there and that you don't know what to do with it, Devin?
So I would say that coming back to understanding where you're selling it into and where your customers are, if you're getting asked questions from your customers and you don't understand what they're asking you about, you might have a risk that you have some data requirements, some expectations that are new or evolving that isn't something that you're directly in scope of, but they're asking you for this information because they ultimately need it to meet obligations of some sort there. So really cluing into the types of things that your customers ask you about.
Interesting. So let's bring sustainability into this. Devin, where are sustainability and inventory strategy still clashing? Like, how do we get them into alignment without sacrificing either goal?
Sure. So in general, when it comes to the idea of business and sustainability, what we're really looking at is a bit of a paradigm shift. We're widening our measure of success in the way that we think about costs associated with doing business, right? Beyond just the price involved of buying and selling goods, what about these environmental and these social costs of doing business? Like I said, it's a paradigm shift. It requires a lot of change in behaviors. And I think that we're getting better at doing these types of things. But there is still a clash, right? And there is still learning that has to be done. So for example, there's a regulation called the EU deforestation regulation that's going to go into effect at the end of this year, where products being put on the EU market have due diligence requirements before the products are being put on the market. However, that due diligence needs to demonstrate that that product wasn't produced on land that's been subject to deforestation since after December 31st, 2020, right? So you might have a product that's been sitting in a warehouse for a few years that is then going to be placed on a market in 2026, where you still need to have that type of level of due diligence information going back, right? So we still have this clash of how business operates traditionally and how we keep track of things versus now these other expectations where we have theory behaviors that we're looking to correct, but then how does that actually happen in practice? So, I was just talking to another one of our customers today about another regulation related to emissions, the carbon border adjustment mechanism, and they had their customer ask them for emissions information about a part, like 10 parts of theirs, and they said, we don't even have record of having those parts, but like, I don't think we've made these for years, right? But here we are because that part was sitting in inventory, right? And just last quarter had been imported into the EU, which triggered a reporting obligation for the customer of theirs, who is the importer, who is now asking their supplier for this very detailed granular information for a production process that doesn't exist anymore, right?
Yeah.
So that's where we still see this friction, but I think the biggest thing we can do is just keep learning and iterating and growing in this space, and not let perfect be the enemy of good. Case in point, the CBAM regulation just announced a bunch of simplifications to the process because there was a transitional period where we tested out some theories of this is the expectation that we want to place out there. How is the market able to meet it or not? And they were able to make some very tactical adjustments really quickly in comparison to some other regulations that are going through a similar process right now because it's been tested out. So I think that that's ultimately where it is. It's just going to be a learning process as we start to incorporate these things.
Well, and stay on top of regulations because it's definitely going to be a detriment to the business if you can't answer some of those clients' questions, which is crazy. Deb, I want you to close us out. What's one thing that you want everybody to think about when it comes to AI and inventory?
I mean, I would definitely use it in a way that it works really well. So if you are finding that your inventory is getting too high or too low, I would throw that information into a large language model and have it start helping you find the causals for that sooner rather than later. Do it in real time on a weekly basis rather than waiting for a full quarter to realize you have way too much inventory. And the nice thing about that is it'll not only find the causals, it will also give you recommendations and then can automatically email those recommendations exactly to the right person on the team that can make those changes.
Nobody has time to wait for a quarter to get that type of information and do something about it. So there you have it, straight from the front lines of supply chain strategy. Whether it's AI breakthroughs or putting bad practices to bed, one thing is clear: inventory is no longer just a back office function. It's a frontline battle for resilience, visibility, and responsibility. Thanks so much to our incredible guests, Deb, Sharon, and Devin, and to all of you watching, listening, and leading change. For more bold insights and conversations that move the industry forward, make sure to follow Let's Talk Supply Chain. Until next time, keep pushing boundaries and keep your inventory talking. Thanks, everyone.